Hello, this is No Name. Since I've made a couple of audiobooks at this point, I figured I should share what I've learned, as it isn't the easiest thing to get into. There's a lot of nuance to creating audiobooks, which many people might not anticipate, and that might keep them from creating audiobooks of their own. So, I decided to make this short video detailing what I've learned through my experience. Part 1. Ensuring dedication. There's no point to spending a lot of money and getting yourself all worked up unless you're sure you actually want to read a book to its conclusion. Nothing is sadder than something half done and abandoned. So, select a book you really like to begin with. One someone has never made an audiobook of, or one you like so much you're convinced you can do a better job. Passion can be a great motivator, just don't let it burn you out. To prove you really understand what you're getting in for, try reading the first chapter aloud to yourself. Don't bother recording, or if you do it with your phone and listen to yourself later. Do not show anyone else these recordings. They are your fledgling steps and will not go overly well. If you can complete the first chapter, provided it isn't 2.5 pages long, in which case go ahead and read the second one aloud just to be sure, and you don't hate yourself, you're on the right track. If you made a recording, try listening to it in its entirety. If you can finish listening without despising the sound of your own voice, you know you have the chops for editing, which will be crucial later. Part 2. Acquiring the tools of the trade. Now that you have a book you want to read, there are several things which you need to create audiobooks, and some things you don't. Let's talk about what is mandatory first. 1. A microphone. This one is rather obvious. However, the quality of any given microphone is a difficult thing to discern to someone out of the loop, so I'll give you some pointers from what I've read. First off, it has to be a USB microphone. This is because if the microphone plugs into your microphone port on your computer, it's relying on your inbuilt sound card, which will usually be very noisy. We will discuss this difficulty later. Second, when you're starting out, unless you have the money to throw around, it should probably be a relatively cheap microphone and one you can get used. Two brands which have a good reputation for cheap and decent microphones are Blue and Samson. The Samson Meteor is usually a little over $25 and is convenient in size for tucking away when not in use, comfortably fitting in the palm of your hand. The Blue Snowball, by virtue of being owned by everyone on the face of the earth in 2007, can be found for as little as $10. Which is a ludicrously good price. Full disclosure, I've never used one of these, but they rate well enough. I use a Blue Yeti, which is probably overkill. They go for closer to $70, though good luck finding a Blue microphone without specifying which one you want. 2. Audacity, which is a free program that will, after some fiddling with the settings, capture the sound of your voice with relative stability. We will discuss this later. 3. A video editor. Any free one will do, including Windows Movie Maker, if you can manage to scrounge it out of the mangled corpse of Windows 10. However, I use OpenShot Video Editor when I'm in the mood to cause myself pain, and a positively ancient version of Sony Vegas, which I acquired through completely legitimate means. We're not doing crazy editing here, this will just be for uploading to YouTube later. 4. A quiet room. This is not optional. The sound of an AC blowing in the background we can work with, as can we work with a fan or the hum of a generator in the distance. However, the babble of voices, the slamming of doors, the twittering of birds, and the honking of car horns can completely ruin your recording, and drive you absolutely insane while editing trying to remove them. Pro tip, you can't. You're just going to have to re-record whatever part Tweety decided to chip in on. Now that you have a snowball in order and have become depressingly aware of all the noise around you, we can discuss what isn't totally necessary, i.e. what I don't have and don't really think I need. 1. Foam sound dampening. These are simply blocks of fabric you tape on the walls to make the sound nicer and prevent your voice echoing off them. If you're recording from under the stairs, this will help you. 2. A microphone swivel arm. This is something for people who have tiny desks and need to type while they talk, such as video game players. Since we're not multitasking to that extent, the inbuilt stand will do just fine. However, if you're like me and your desk vibrates slightly due to a computer on it, you can dampen that sound by placing your microphone atop a folded hand towel, which decreases the noise a lot. Part 3. Recording. When the time comes for you to record your audiobook, when you've figured out Audacity and turned your microphone the right way up, you need to bear some things in mind. First, always restart a line from the beginning. I've messed up about 5 times reading the script so far, and I've restarted from the beginning of the line every single time. It may seem trivial to resume a sentence from where you messed up, but once you get into the editing step, you'll realize just how wrong you were. If you're feeling brave, restart a particularly long sentence from the last time you know you took a break, the last semicolon or comma, or the beginning of a long list. If you're not sure you paused during a sentence read, just start all over. It takes an extra few seconds and will save you minutes of agony while editing later. Second, bear in mind that each layer of character should represent a further deviation from the ease with which you perform the voice. That is to say, the narrator should have your natural speaking voice, the protagonist a slight deviation. Tertiary characters can have a lisp or a wheeze, something to distinguish them from each other, which might be hard on the throat, but you don't need to do for very long. Be careful. If you exercise your vocal cords too much by rumbling or squeaking for hours on end, you can do permanent damage. However, we all speak in our normal tone of voice for hours each day, so don't worry about it too much. Third, try your best to keep a character's voice consistent. Try to remember that Timmy has a high, breathy voice and Abigail has a deeper, sultry voice. Messing up can cause confusion in your audience. This is another reason why the protagonist's voice has to be close to your own. It's something you can easily slip into and out of and hopefully keep consistent without thinking about it too much. Fourth, when you start recording, always let the mic run a couple of seconds without making any noise yourself. We'll use this later during the denoising process. Fifth, as many voice actors will attest, it's important to do a couple of things, or not do a couple of things before you record. Make sure not to drink any milk or consume any dairy products directly before you record. This will cause phlegm to gather in your throat and clog your vocal cords, and it won't sound very good. Additionally, right before you record, it's advisable to do some stretches. Rub your cheeks with both hands in order to loosen up the muscles of your face. This will allow you to speak less rigidly and emote more easily. Also, stick out your tongue as far as you can and hold it there for a couple of seconds. This makes you look like an idiot, but on the plus side, it also makes speaking easier. These steps are optional, but it only takes about 10 or 15 seconds to do both exercises, and it does help with the consistency of your speaking voice. Part 4. Editing. Hope you've got your will to live handy because you're going to need it. After recording a chapter of whichever book you want to read, we can begin editing. We quickly export our Audacity audio as a backup in case we do something really stupid, and begin our editing process. First things first, no one likes listening to background hiss and neither do you, so let's dispose of that. Select some audio which only contains the background noise. If you let the mic run for a couple of seconds without saying anything, you should have some at the very beginning of your recording. Highlight it, go to Effect, Noise Reduction, and click on Get Sample. Then select all the audio with Ctrl-A and hit Ctrl-R to repeat the noise reduction command. Now the amount of noise in your recording should be significantly lower. Now listen through your audio in real time, making sure to delete any mistakes you may have made and silences that go on too long. You can also generate silence if you feel it adds dramatic effect. If you notice something you did wrong while you're editing, don't trouble yourself trying to Frankenstein the line back together out of other pieces of audio. That won't sound very good. Just hit Ctrl and B to bookmark the error, then go back to it after you've finished editing, re-record the botched line, and copy-paste it over the mistake. Give it a few tries the second time around to make sure you get the enunciation right. If you make any noise inadvertently during your recording, just select the audio with the irritating noise and hit Ctrl-L for silence. Remember that if you ever mess up, you just have to hit Ctrl-Z to undo the mistake. Once you've finished, select all the audio and apply 2 effects, Limiter and Normalize. And don't forget that the internet is your gateway to knowledge. Entire forums and websites exist solely for the purpose of giving you advice on how to use Audacity to the best effect. Part 5. Video Editing. This part is only for people who want to upload their videos to YouTube, like me. For some reason I never understood, YouTube mandates that every audio track must be uploaded as a video, even if you don't need it, like realistically in the case of an audiobook or a song, but that's not for me to decide. So open up your video editing software of choice. You definitely don't need the latest and greatest copy of Adobe Premiere, so don't bother. First, you import your audio by dragging it into the voice section. Then drag in your video, which can just be a single image, or potentially a few different ones if you want. Drag them to cover the entirety of your audio, then go to File, and hit Render As. Select the Internet preset, or whatever you need to do to get it into the 128 by 720 option, 25 frames per second. You can render it at 30 frames per second, but since you're just rendering a static image being flashed at your users 25 times a second, that'd be an enormous waste of time and processing power. Next, hit Render. All that's left to do is wait for the video to render completely, then upload it to YouTube and publish it. I hope this guide has helped you and shown that creating audiobooks isn't difficult. It requires a small investment and a great deal of patience and diligence. However, it is ultimately fun and rewarding. You're creating something for other people to enjoy in your spare time, and giving something for them to enjoy in their spare time as well. Many people listen to audiobooks in the car or when they're doing other tasks, and they don't have the time to sit down and read a physical book. That makes audiobooks rather important, and a worthy contribution if you have the time to do so. You may also bring attention to a book you really like, and other people don't know about. So I hope that a few people will potentially watch this video and decide to make an audiobook for themselves. In the meantime, thank you for listening.